Good morning, students. Welcome back to our YouTube channel. Children, what can you see in these pictures? Yes, these are polar bears. Now, where are these polar bears found? Yes, these are found in the polar regions. So, today we will be reading and discussing a poem named The Polar Region. This poem is written by Sanchit Saluja. Now, the polar regions are the areas or the regions around the poles. That means the areas around the North Pole and the South Pole. These areas are extremely cold due to the presence of sea ice. And we have Arctic Ocean in the north and Antarctic in the south. Now, let's start with our poem. Poem 5, The Polar Region. Before you read, have you ever visited any hill station? You must know that many hill stations face severe winters and may often experience snowfall. The polar regions are also similar areas located near the north and the south poles, which experience severe winters and extremely harsh conditions. So children, you must have been to hill stations or you must have seen hill stations in pictures. And you do know that during the winters, the hill stations face extreme snowfall, due to which these are extremely cold, right? Now, the polar regions are also similar to these hill stations because even the polar regions experience severe winters and they have extremely harsh conditions there. Now, let us read to find out how the poet has described the polar region. Polar regions are full of ice and snow. The temperatures there are very low. So chilly and bitter is the climate. Summers there are always very late. The sunlight there is rather scarce, but the blizzards are angry and fierce. The Eskimos live in their tiny igloos, wearing hood jackets and big shoes. Now, children, in the first stanza, the poet is telling us about the conditions and the weather in the polar regions. He is telling us that the temperature in the polar regions is extremely low due to the ice and the snow present there. And the conditions are so chilly that even the summers are always late there. In the second stanza, the poet says that due to low temperature, snow and ice, the sunlight there is very less. But the blizzards, what are blizzards? Blizzards are snowstorms. There are extremely wild snowstorms, and those snowstorms are always angry and fierce. What are fierce? Those are very dangerous. These snowstorms are very dangerous. Now, the inhabitants who live in the polar region are called as Eskimos. These Eskimos live in their tiny igloos. Igloos are dome-shaped houses which are made out of snow. And as in winters you all wear sweaters to secure yourself from the cold, the Eskimos also wear hooded jackets and big shoes to save themselves from the climate there. Now children, this is how an igloo looks like. They may use harpoons, which look like spears, used to hunt to get those large polar bears. The animals are the Arctic fox, bears, and ermine. With their ability to adapt, they survive just fine. So, children, here the poet is telling us about the instrument used by the Eskimos for hunting. They use harpoons which are shaped like spears, and they use harpoons to hunt the polar bears. Now the question arises that who all are the animals which can be found in these areas? So the animals who are seen there or who can be found there are the Arctic fox, bears, and ermine. Now the Eskimos are wearing hooded jackets and big shoes to save themselves from the cold. But the animals do not wear such things, right? So how do these organisms survive? These organisms have the ability to adapt, the ability to adjust, which helps them to survive even in those cold and harsh conditions. Children, this is how a harpoon looks like, which is used by the Eskimos for hunting purposes and to kill the polar bears. In the older days, lived there the Lapps with furry clothes and furry caps. Antarctica is a continent free. It is home to our dear Dakshin Gangotri. In the last stanza, the poet is telling us about the older days. He says that the Lapps used to live in the polar regions in the older days, and they used to wear furry clothes. That means they used to wear clothes with furs and furry caps, right? He also tells us that the Antarctica is a continent free. That means the Antarctica is not inhabited by anyone, and it is the home to our dear Dakshin Gangotri, and it's home for Dakshin Gangotri. Now, what's Dakshin Gangotri? Dakshin Gangotri is the first scientific base station of India, which is in Antarctica, right? So, children, in this poem, the poet Sanchit Saluja is telling us about the weather, the temperature, the inhabitants, the animals, and the older days of the polar regions. I hope that you have understood this poem and you have enjoyed it as well. That's all for today. Thank you and have a great day.